In her biography Becoming Beauvoir, Kate Kirkpatrick meticulously chronicles the life of Simone de Beauvoir, one of the most influential and prolific feminist philosophers and writers of the 20th century. The book paints a vivid portrait of Beauvoir's formative years, her intellectual development, and her complex personal relationships, including her long-term partnership with Jean-Paul Sartre. Kirkpatrick's narrative is both engaging and scholarly, providing a nuanced understanding of Beauvoir's life and work within the context of French intellectual history. Beauvoir was born in Paris on January 9, 1908, into a well-to-do bourgeois family. Her father, Georges de Beauvoir, was an engineer, and her mother, Françoise Brentano, came from a family of wealthy bankers. From an early age, Simone exhibited exceptional intelligence and a strong desire for independence. She was raised in a household that valued education and intellectual pursuits, and she was encouraged to develop her own interests and passions. As a young girl, Beauvoir immersed herself in literature, philosophy, and history. She was particularly drawn to the works of Voltaire, Rousseau, and Nietzsche, as well as the writings of feminist authors like George Sand and Mary Wollstonecraft. She also developed a deep appreciation for classical music and art, often attending concerts and exhibitions with her parents. Despite her privileged upbringing, Beauvoir was acutely aware of the limitations placed on women in French society, and she began to question the role that she was expected to play as a woman. In 1926, Beauvoir enrolled at the Sorbonne to study philosophy. She quickly distinguished herself as a brilliant student, earning the admiration of her professors and peers. During this time, she also began to explore her sexuality and developed a series of intense relationships with both men and women. One of her most significant early relationships was with a fellow student named Olga Kosakiewicz, who served as a muse and confidant for Beauvoir throughout her life. In 1929, Beauvoir met Jean-Paul Sartre, a fellow philosopher and writer who would become her lifelong partner. The two shared a passionate intellectual connection and a mutual desire for freedom and authenticity. They began a tumultuous relationship that would last for over 5 decades, during which they maintained separate residences and numerous extramarital affairs, while continuing to collaborate on their respective literary and philosophical projects. Beauvoir's first novel, She Came to Stay, was published in 1943 and marked her emergence as a major literary figure. The novel, which explores themes of love, betrayal, and existential alienation, was well received by critics and established Beauvoir as a leading voice in French literature. In the years that followed, she would go on to write several more novels, including The Mandarins 1954 and The Second Sex 1949, which is widely regarded as one of the foundational texts of modern feminism. The Second Sex is a groundbreaking work that challenges traditional notions of gender and femininity. In it, Beauvoir argues that women are not born naturally inferior to men. Rather, their subordination is a result of societal conditioning and oppression. She calls for a radical re-evaluation of the role of women in society and advocates for their emancipation through education, economic independence, and political empowerment. The book was controversial upon its publication, but has since become a classic of feminist theory and continues to inspire generations of activists and scholars. Throughout her life, Beauvoir remained deeply engaged with political and social issues. She was an active member of the French resistance during World War II and continued to speak out against fascism, colonialism, and other forms of oppression. After the war, she traveled extensively, lecturing on feminism and existentialism around the world. In the 1960s, she became involved with the American Civil Rights Movement and the anti-war movement, using her platform as a public intellectual to advocate for social justice and human rights. Despite her many accomplishments, Beauvoir's personal life was marked by turmoil and suffering. She struggled with depression and anxiety throughout her adult life, and her relationships with both Sartre and others were often characterized by jealousy, betrayal, and emotional distance. In the final years of her life, Beauvoir's health began to deteriorate, and she was diagnosed with cancer. She died on April 14, 1986, at the age of 78. Kirkpatrick's Becoming Beauvoir provides a comprehensive and nuanced portrait of one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. Through meticulous research and thoughtful analysis, Kirkpatrick skillfully navigates the complexities of Beauvoir's life and work, situating her within the broader context of French intellectual history while also highlighting her enduring relevance to contemporary debates about gender, identity, and social justice. This masterful biography is essential reading for anyone interested in understanding the life and legacy of Simone de Beauvoir.